Fresh Art International presents Art Talk, conversations about creativity in the 21st century. I'm Kathy Bird, Fresh Art producer, and today I'm talking with João Paulo Feliciano, as I'm sitting in his recording studio in Lisbon, and I've just been this afternoon to see your exhibition Monkey Business at Cristina Guerra's. Tell me about that show.
It's a bit more than just a simple artist solo show. There are like three separate parts of the exhibition, if you want. One, which is, I would say, like the normal part of the exhibition. It's comprised of like 6 new artworks. Mm-hmm. Then there is another section, so it's a section where I have like what one would call merchandising, or there's T-shirts, posters, CDs, vinyl from my actual record label, which the record label that I run right now called Pataca Discos, but also from a record label that I had in the 90s and I still had stuff around, and from the band that I had in the 90s and from the band that I have right now. Catalogs from my exhibitions that I've done, it's all there on sale at normal bookstore or record store prices. And then there's another section which is actual garage sale. It's just stuff that I had around in the studio and I don't need anymore.
I saw a wheelbarrow.
Yeah,
and 3 guitars.
Yeah, very different kind of stuff. Like,
definitely.
It's interesting, and it generated some discussions, especially during the opening of the exhibition, is the relation of, especially that part of the exhibition, to art, if you want to say. I take that as absolutely non-art. That's not art. I mean, it's just a garage sale. It's just a cheap economy action that I could just go to a flea market and put those things on sale there for the prices that I'm selling them there. And it's just that I proposed that to the gallerists to include in my exhibition a section that was not art. It was just
something from your everyday life.
Yeah. But then, of course, it's people like saying, you can't escape. I mean, you're an artist. You're doing a show in an art gallery. You at least have to take this as an artist's action.
Yes, and so somehow each object has a metaphoric significance suddenly that you maybe didn't place on it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but so, and I was saying that, well, it seems that Duchamp took a hard time making people accept that pissoir was art. Now I'm having an art time making people understand that a garage sale is not art.
Tell me about how you grew into music as one of your platforms.
Yeah, music is part of my life even since before art. I mean, because it's since early youth, since my early teen days that I've been loving music and playing music since like I was 10 at least.
So you had a band?
Yeah, I had a band like when I was 17 or 18. Nothing professional or even with the hopes of getting too far. But I was involved in music, and I felt that music would always be important in my life, and I didn't know how at the time. Then I went to college and to study language and literature, which was my graduation. I graduated on language and literature studies, Portuguese and English literature. And while I was at college, the interest in art became really more strong. Suddenly I started to be interested in visual arts, and I met some artists, and I started to, I already made drawings, so I started to make paintings and then some objects. Somehow I started a career as a visual artist.
And your aesthetic as a visual artist.
Yeah. When I started, I was really more, into painting Schnabel without the figuration and the plate, kind of Sigmar Polk, some tapias at the beginning, also on the trying to introduce some found objects or some more non-traditional materials in the paintings. And then I went to live some time, like less than a year, in Brussels, and that was a big change in my artistic career. When I went to Belgium, I wanted to open up possibilities as an artist. If I take like the years between 87 and 92, like these 5 years, I think I've used it all that you can list as artist vocabulary or materials. I did paintings, drawings, collage, photography, videos, sound installation, music. I made a record, rock band. I started a record label. I started a graphic design thing. It all like it was.
That's
in
amazing.
these 5 years, I started.
Did the full range of creative experience.
Absolutely.
And then.
And then
you settled down on something a little.
Then in the middle of that, I was doing a lot of things, but obviously not making enough money to live from doing art. Especially that I was doing very, I wouldn't say strange artworks because it's not strange, but not really commercial pieces. I did a piece called Crash Music. It was just 50 vinyl LPs smashed against the wall. Well, I actually
sold it now, right?
I sold it now for quite some money to Saralva's museum. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
super.
No,
that's the way it should happen.
20 years after it was made. Another piece that I did around that time called White Dust Rusted Strings, which was obviously a metaphor for music and rock and roll, which was just lines of talco powder on the ground that I made very perfect. Also related to the pentagram, where you write music. And then after the lines were perfectly set up, I throw old rusty guitar strings on top of it. So the lines got destroyed, by the effect of the strings. And so the installation was just the strings and the talco powder on the ground. So that kind of stuff, just to mention two examples, was very hard to sell at the time, even though I was working with one of the best Portuguese galleries at the time. And I started a graphic design studio with my brother. We set up a small company, that was basically a graphic design studio, but at the same time was just a formal platform for me to do other projects if I had other projects to do, which I started to do. One of them was setting up an independent record label with some friends, which was kind of successful, but obviously not financially viable in the 90s. It was very hard for independent rock, pre-internet times. Okay. Yeah. But I remember the years until 92 to 95, 96, the opening up of possibilities and artistic experience never stopped, and I started to be interested in new technologies and developments in sensors, or more interested in what Gary Hill was using with video and sensors and stuff like that, and multimedia. And I was kind of lost for some time, lost in the sense of what shall I do with all these things? I mean, I had the feeling that I need to find something where I can put all these interests and
all the energy.
And all this energy in something that kind of encompasses it all, which it's not easy and was not evident. And then by luck and destiny, this was the pre-Expo 98. So around 96, I got invited to collaborate with Expo 98, and for a very exciting and very specific project. I was invited to be part of the early team. This was 2 years before the Expo, that had to think of nightly show that happened at the center of the Expo site.
Excellent.
And then suddenly that was wow, this is it. I mean, even though I understood that for the Expo officials, they were in their minds hiring me as a consultant to find someone else or a company
it became
to do, me and the people that were part of the team, because we were like very like-minded, very energetic, and we said, we are going to do this thing, man. It's not some French company. I mean, we have to do it. We know how to do it, and of course it was very daring because none of us had done nothing compared to that before.
What if I was there? What would I have experienced?
It's very hard to describe. It was the night show, so it happened 132 nights in a row. It was in the middle of an old a dock, a renovated dock, the size of 9 football pitches. So people could be all around, and the show happened in the middle, and it was using projections and light and sound, moving structures, big moving structures. The oceanarium that was brand new, was landmark of the Expo 98, was also part of the scenography of the show. And there was a very basic kind of universal story as a guideline being told, but not told. The story was not told like in very easy to follow metaphors. Since the start, I said to the people that were involved, I say, this is obviously a show for millions of people. We're talking about millions. And in the end, about, we don't know, 5 to 8 million people must have seen that show. So we're talking about something that is for a broad audience. But we don't, we shouldn't lower the level of our artistic exigence, say, or we shouldn't try to speak in an easier way because a lot of people are going to see. We have to do something that some guy like Baudrillard or Dan Cameron comes in and loves it at the same time as the guy from the bakery shop on the corner. That was, like in my artistic parkour, a very important moment because that sort of, it crystallizes all these interests and approaches that I have working with music and sound and the visual side of it, creating something spectacular for people, working with art metaphors.
I love how you use the word for your artistic practice of a parkour.
I can take it all, I can mix it all, and I can produce an artistic object that is a synthesis of being an artist and a musician and an art director and a designer and an architect somehow, and a light designer, or all together. It's not a pastiche, it's a real synthesis and coming together of all these disciplines, and obviously working with other people.
You have a musical group now that performs.
My musical activity nowadays, like since the last 3 years, it's basically I have a big band and a record label, and now I do recordings and act as producer for other bands at the same time as I have my own band. My own band right now called Real Combo Lisbonense. It's a very rewarding project to be in. We investigate on the early days of Portuguese pop music and this period where the dance music was made for people to dance, and people listened to music by going to dance ballrooms and listen to music to amuse themselves and to dance. So we're talking about like the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Then rock and roll came in, and the electricity came in, and those kind of dance musics, the polkas and cha-cha-chas and mambos and bossa novas from Brazil, started to mix up with rock and roll and twist and yeah, and then with soul and funky and disco. So we investigate on this genealogy of the early days of Portuguese pop music, and we take that repertoire and do update versions of it, but being very respectful for the way it was done. In a way, it's a bit like playing Bach with original instruments, in this idea of being respectful, trying to make the music sound as it sounded at by the time. So we take great care of the equipment we use. We use basically vintage instruments and amplifiers, and basically when we record we use a lot of vintage techniques. At the same time, we're not orthodox because this is a 21st century band. Looking back in the past for to bring it into the present, for me it's connected to something a bit more less superficial than it might seem at the first glance. It has to do with what I call progressive nostalgia, which is, it's an awareness. If you look around and notice how fast are we changing as a civilization, it's pretty clear for me that we're in this acceleration. There's great danger of simply losing things, objects, traditions, forms of expression, possibilities even. In music, this is pretty clear. I mean, the changes between like the whole time of vacuum tube equipment, the heavy stuff, and the laptop, the difference between the gramophone or the vinyl record player and the MP3 player. So the differences are huge. And some of the things are too important for us to just be abandoned, like the ability to play together as a band based on a common language that is being developed for centuries, which is music. And there is a logic. So there are notes. You can write arrangements. An arrangement is a guideline. It's a chart. It's a language that a group of musicians can share to produce something together that it's not achievable on a computer, because it's a human activity, and it's a human activity based on the existence of physical materials and situations, and based on an accumulation of knowledge that is centuries old. I want to look in the past to see if there are things that are too important for us not to bring with us into the future. I want to be aware of this, and in this case, in the music scene, I'm doing this with Real Combo Lisbonense.
Who goes to hear you play?
Real Combo Lisbonense.
Who's interested in what you're creating?
That's the other amazing thing of Real Combo Lisbonense, is that we have people of all ages and people of all cultural backgrounds go to see us. It's really nice. The music is really good. The sound is good. The visual setup is really nice.
How has it worked for you to have all these platforms now?
I think now I'm used to it. It requires a certain organization in the work, so I can manage like different projects, and moreover, I developed the natural ability of finding bridges and ways to connect all these different activities. So the reason why it suddenly just a click. Oh, I'm going to integrate my activity as the record label in my art show in Christina. So, and then we made a concert there at the show in the gallery last week with 3 bands that are on my label. So
you're having fun.
Absolutely.
Vejo meu bem, seguro na mãozinha. Oh, é calor que até aqui em cima me vem. E sufocada eu digo, oh, ele não fala, mas diz, oh. Então saímos.
You've been listening to Fresh Talk with João Paulo Feliciano. Read more about João Paulo and hear other podcasts in this series on freshartinternational.com.